Let me tell you exactly how it started. And trust me, no one in that courtroom would forget that scene anytime soon. The room was cold, heavy, the kind of silence that feels like even the air stopped just to watch the humiliation that was about to unfold. And there she was, Helena, sitting with her hands clasped together, trying to steady her breath while staring at her husband, or rather, the man she once thought she knew. Across the table, wearing a victorious smirk, sat Marcella, the mistress, a woman who didn't bother hiding the pleasure she felt about being there. She moved like she owned the place, crossing her legs dramatically, flipping her platinum blonde hair, fanning herself as if she were at some glamorous theater show. Every gesture was intentional. Every look was meant to stab. And of course, Hanato, the husband, played the perfect role of the cold-hearted betrayer. With a gold pen that looked more like a trophy than a writing tool, he signed the divorce papers as if he were closing $1 million deal. No hesitation, no guilt, not even a glance toward Helena. Then he smiled at Marcella, the kind of smile that says, "It's over. I won." It felt like the humiliation was complete, but life has a funny way of turning the table. Judge Azevedo, an older man with sharp, experienced eyes, watched the whole thing quietly. He wasn't just listening, he was reading the room, reading their souls. And while Hanato celebrated too early, the judge slightly tilted his head, as if he had just noticed something no one else did. Helena stayed there, still, silent, but not broken. If you saw her quickly, you might think she was defeated, resigned. But you know that calm look people get right before a storm? That expression that only appears when someone has stopped crying and started planning? Exactly that. The truth is, Helena wasn't there to accept crumbs. She wasn't there to watch her own collapse. She was waiting for the exact moment, patiently, quietly. And no one noticed. Not Renato, not Marcella, not even their attorney, who treated Helena like a piece of furniture that needed to be removed. What none of them imagined was that the silent woman at the end of the table had a secret. A secret that would turn that simple divorce into an earthquake. A secret that would wipe the smug smile off every single face in that room. And the moment came when Hanato slid the papers toward her and said, "Just sign it, Helena. Let's end this like civilized adults." That was the moment she lifted her eyes. Slowly. She breathed in deeply, and she smiled. A calm, serene smile. One that made even the judge shift in his seat. Because that wasn't the smile of someone defeated. It was the smile of someone who knows something no one else knows. Of someone who's about to turn the game upside down. Of someone who has prepared quietly and strategically for the perfect moment. And my friend, that moment was coming. Much sooner than any of them expected. Before you understand what happened in that courtroom, you need to understand something about Helena. Her silence didn't begin there. It was built slowly, layer by layer, wound after wound, across months in which the marriage she believed she was protecting was already collapsing, and Renato was the one kicking down the walls. It all started subtly. It always does, right? First came the little comments that seemed harmless, then the sudden changes in tone, the late nights, the excuses that didn't add up, and finally that heavy feeling in her chest, the kind you try to ignore because admitting it would destroy you. But eventually, Helena couldn't ignore anything anymore. The first real humiliation came at Renato's company anniversary party. Helena never tried to impress anyone. She was simple, elegant, and comfortable in her own skin. But that night, Marcella saw an opportunity, and she took it. "Oh, Helena, that color looks so unique on you. Not everyone can wear something so different." The way she stretched out the word different said everything. A sweet poison dipped in expensive perfume. Renato? He simply laughed. Didn't defend her, didn't protect her, didn't even hold her hand. Then came the business trips, the unexplained charges, the shirts that smelled like perfume that wasn't hers, the messages answered hours later, the sudden disinterest in anything she said or planned. Helena wasn't stupid. She was just in love with a memory. But what hurt the most wasn't the affair, it was the humiliation. Marcella began posting photos at Helena's favorite restaurants, buying jewelry Helena knew Renato had said they couldn't afford, showing up at events where Helena wasn't invited, acting like she had already taken Helena's place. And the neighbors? They noticed. You know how people are. Their whispers followed Helena everywhere. What a shame. She deserves better. Poor thing, she doesn't even see it. But Helena saw everything. She just chose silence, not out of
weakness, but out of strategy. Because arguing with someone who wants to destroy you is like throwing water on a grease fire. It only spreads. Marcella escalated her cruelty like it was a sport. She would approach Helena at events with that fake sweet smile and say, "You seem more relaxed now. Must be nice not pretending anymore, huh?" And then she'd add the dagger. Some people just aren't made for certain environments. Helena felt every sting, every jab, every calculated insult. But something else grew inside her too. Clarity. She realized anger wasn't going to save her. Silence would. Patience would. Observation would. Renato believed he was winning. Marcella believed she had already won. Everyone else believed Helena was broken. But they didn't understand the kind of woman they were dealing with. Helena wasn't the type to explode. She was the type to wait, and then shake the ground beneath their feet. And the quiet smile she gave in the courtroom? It was born right here, in these moments of humiliation, where she realized, I won't leave this story as the victim. I'll leave as the only one who didn't lose her dignity. And that was the beginning of their downfall, even if they had no idea yet. If there's one thing I need you to understand, it's this. Helena didn't snap out of nowhere. There was a moment, a very specific moment, when something inside her finally stopped bending and broke straight. And ironically, it happened on a night that was supposed to be special. Renato had invited her to a charity dinner organized by the company, but the moment they walked in, Helena felt the atmosphere change. People whispered. Eyes followed her, and standing right at the center of the room, glowing like a chandelier and twice as artificial, was Marcella. She walked toward them with a smile so wide it looked painful. "Helena, you came!" as if she owned the event. And then, the dagger. You know, it's truly inspiring how Renato embraces diversity in his personal life. Not every man has the courage. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that protects you, the kind that suffocates you. A few people laughed nervously, others looked at Helena with pity, the kind of pity that tastes like salt on an open wound. And Renato? He lowered his eyes, adjusted his cufflinks, and said absolutely nothing. Not a word, not a look, not even a "that's enough." He let her drown, right there, in front of everyone. Helena held herself together until they got into the car. Her hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from rage. "Why didn't you say anything, Renato?" she asked quietly. "Are you serious? You're being dramatic again." "Dramatic? She insulted me in front of your entire company." "That's not what she said, and you know it. You twist everything because you're jealous of her education, her behavior, the way she fits into my world." That was it. That was the moment. Not the cheating, not the lies, not the whispers. It was that sentence, the sentence that cut deeper than any betrayal. The way she fits into my world. Translation: You don't belong here, Helena. You never did. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't ask why. She just went silent. Because in that moment she finally understood Renato wasn't falling out of love. He was ashamed. Ashamed of her, of where she came from, of what she represented. And once Helena saw that clearly, something inside her shifted. She stopped fighting for him and started fighting for herself. From that night forward, she paid attention to everything, every lie, every whisper, every bank transaction that didn't make sense. She watched Marcella flaunt luxury items Helena knew Renato couldn't afford. And she realized something important. They weren't just betraying her emotionally. They were planning something bigger. Helena felt it. A storm was coming, a betrayal far deeper than a broken heart. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't scared. She was ready. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the game.
Didn't cry, didn't panic. She simply took a screenshot, calm, precise, and sent it to her email. Then she put the phone back exactly where it was. This wasn't the moment to fight. This was the moment to collect. From that night on, she became a quiet observer in her own home. And the more she watched, the more she found. Bank notices, passwords scribbled on sticky notes, phone calls made at odd hours, documents left half open on the table. Renato was getting sloppy, too confident, too sure that Helena was emotionally destroyed. And Marcella? Marcella practically handed Helena the evidence on a silver platter. Every restaurant photo, every designer bag, every luxury trip she posted online with the caption, "Women like us deserve the best." Helena saved everything, organized it in folders, labeled by date, location, and amount spent. Not as revenge, not to win anyone back, but because she finally realized they weren't just cheating on her. They were stealing her future. One afternoon, while Renato claimed to be working late, Helena sat on the living room floor with a notebook, her laptop, and a simple question. What exactly are they planning? And slowly, painfully, she saw the puzzle forming. Transfers to a new account, loans taken out in her name, their home listed as collateral, his company funds disappearing. They weren't preparing for a divorce. They were preparing an ambush. That's when Helena made her first real decision. I won't fight this alone. The next morning, she walked into a law firm downtown, a place she had passed by for years without ever imagining she would need it. And that's when she met attorney Mara Valdez, known for two things: her razor-sharp mind and her reputation for dismantling arrogant husbands who thought they were smarter than everyone else. When Helena told her story, Mara leaned back, folded her arms, and said, "He thinks he's playing chess, but he's playing checkers. And you, Helena, you're going to learn the real game." And that was the first time Helena truly smiled, not with sadness, not with fear, but with something she hadn't felt in months. Power. Real, quiet, calculated power. The storm wasn't coming anymore. Helena was the storm. Helena didn't know it yet, but the decision to step into attorney Mara Valdez's office had already changed her destiny. Because from that moment on, she was no longer walking blindly through the betrayal. She was following a map. And Mara? Mara didn't just hand her a map. She handed her a weapon. Your silence is your camouflage, Mara told her. Arrogant men expose themselves when they think no one is watching. So let him talk, let him brag, let him believe he's invincible. And Helena did exactly that. She didn't argue, she didn't question, she didn't even change her tone of voice around Renato. She became the perfect actress. Sweet, calm, accepting. A woman supposedly too hurt to resist. And Renato, predictable as ever, relaxed immediately. One night, he poured himself a glass of whiskey and leaned against the kitchen counter, talking like a man who thought the world adored him. You know, Helena, Jessica was right about many things. She sees my potential. She understands my world. She makes me feel like I deserve more. Helena folded laundry in silence, nodding gently, as if she agreed. Inside, she was recording every word. Not with her phone, with something far sharper. Her memory. Another night, Marcella posted a picture of herself in a 5-star hotel pool, a hotel Renato had told Helena he didn't like because it was too expensive. The caption? Working hard, living better. Women like us don't settle. Helena saved the post and the hotel receipt she later found in Renato's coat pocket. Piece by piece, the puzzle was becoming clearer. But the moment the full picture snapped into place happened unexpectedly on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when Helena walked into the bank to check a joint account statement. The manager, Mr. Everett, looked nervous the moment he saw her. Mrs. Silva, maybe this is something your husband should discuss with you. Why? It's my account too. He hesitated. Then slowly he slid a sheet of paper toward her. Her stomach didn't drop. Her hands didn't tremble. But her pulse went cold. Because right there in black ink were withdrawals she'd never seen before. Huge transfers, large cash movements, and most shocking of all, a $150,000 transfer to an account under the name of Marcella Duarte. It didn't stop there. A second document revealed something even worse. Renato had opened a credit line using their house, their home as collateral, without telling her, without asking, without even hesitating. Then Mr. Everett lowered his voice, and your husband came in last week asking about transferring all remaining assets into his name. He said you had agreed to sign whatever was necessary. Helena felt something inside her settle, not break, because now she knew.
Truth. Renato wasn't planning a divorce. He was planning a theft. He was preparing to leave her with nothing, not even the home she had helped build brick by brick. That night, when Renato called pretending to be at a conference, Helena answered with a gentle tone. How's the trip, honey? He spoke confidently, the confidence of a man who believes he has already won. And Helena realized something. He had no idea the game had just changed. Not in his favor, but in hers. She hung up the phone, stared at her reflection in the dark window, and whispered, You tried to erase me. Now watch me rewrite everything. And that was the moment Helena stopped surviving and started preparing for the kill. From the moment Helena walked out of the bank with those documents in her bag, something about her changed. Not on the outside, no. On the outside, she was the same woman Renato believed he had broken. Soft voice, lowered eyes, movements measured, quiet, polite. But inside, Helena had turned into a strategist. She walked into attorney Maura Valdez's office the next morning with the calm precision of someone carrying a loaded weapon. Maura scanned the documents slowly, her eyebrows lifting in satisfaction, not surprise. Oh, Helena, she murmured, tapping the papers. He's not just committing adultery, he's committing fraud. Financial fraud, marital fraud, asset misappropriation. She looked up with a smile that was both reassuring and lethal. He thinks he's setting a trap for you, but what he's actually doing is building his own gallows. That was the day Helena and Maura built the strategy that would dismantle Renato's entire empire. And it started with one simple instruction. Pretend you don't know anything. Helena nodded. She understood. It was time to play his game. But better. So when Renato arrived home from his fake trip expecting a confrontation, Helena greeted him with a warm smile. "I made dinner," she said gently. Renato blinked, confused, then relieved, then smug. The worst combination. He sat, he ate, he relaxed, and he talked too much. "Maybe this divorce won't be as difficult as I thought," he said, slicing his steak. "You're being surprisingly mature." Helena smiled, pouring him more wine. "Oh, Renato, I just want both of us to be happy." On the inside, she almost laughed, because every time he opened his mouth, he gave her more ammunition. For weeks, she played the perfect role. She stopped questioning his absences, stopped checking his things, stopped reacting to Marcella's posts. She made Renato believe he had finally tamed her, and he became reckless. He bragged openly on the phone, believing Helena wasn't listening. He left documents lying around. He forwarded emails to himself. He joked with Marcella about their new life coming soon. Helena collected every detail. Screenshots, receipts, audio, video, printed statements, deleted messages recovered from the cloud. She didn't cry once. Not anymore. Meanwhile, Marcella mistook Helena's calm for defeat and doubled her cruelty. At a charity event, she walked up to Helena wearing a diamond necklace Helena recognized immediately. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Marcella purred. "Expensive taste is something you're born with, not taught." Helena didn't even blink. She simply said, "You're right, you can't teach class." Marcella smirked, thinking she had won the exchange, but Helena walked away knowing one thing. Every insult was now evidence, every word was fuel, every humiliation was sharpening her resolve. Back in Mara's office, the lawyer looked through the growing stack of evidence, impressed. "Helena, you were made for this." "No," Helena corrected softly. "I was made to survive worse than this. Now I'm learning how to win." And Mara smiled, not kindly, but proudly. "You're not just going to win, Helena. You're going to end his entire performance." By then, Helena didn't want revenge out of anger anymore. She wanted justice. Renato thought he was in a quiet house with a silent, broken wife. But in reality, he was living with the woman who would destroy every lie he ever built. If Renato had even an ounce of intuition left, he would have noticed it. The way Helena moved differently, walked differently, breathed differently. Not with fear, not with doubt, but with certainty. But Renato was too wrapped up in his own ego to see anything beyond himself. He thought he had already won. And that, exactly that, is what made him dangerous and incredibly easy to defeat. Because arrogant men don't hide their footprints. They proudly leave them everywhere. And Helena? She followed every single one. Marcella didn't help him either. In fact, she was Helena's favorite source of evidence. Almost every day, Marcella posted something new online. A designer purse, a luxury spa visit, a hotel room with a view of the ocean. Always with captions like, "Finally getting the life I deserve," or "Upgrade complete." Helena saved every post, every reel, every tagged beady bar location.
Location, all while smiling politely whenever Marcella appeared in person, as if they were two women on opposite sides of the same storm, unaware that one had already drowned. One night, as Renato and Marcella celebrated their future at a rooftop bar, Marcella filmed him for social media. They were toasting champagne, laughing like villains in a soap opera. Renato raised his glass and said, "Just a few more weeks and Helena will sign everything. Then we'll finally be free of all that baggage." Marcella laughed. She posted it. Helena downloaded it. Simple as that. And Helena's fake profile created quietly, with no followers, no posts, collected every piece of evidence Marcella bragged about. When she showed the video to Mara the next day, the attorney let out a low whistle. "They're handing you the case, gift-wrapped with a bow." There were other mistakes too. Emails where Renato forwarded sensitive documents, a recorded phone call where he admitted he needed to get rid of Helena before she realized anything, a hotel bill addressed to him and Marcella during a business trip. Every detail added another layer to the masterpiece of justice Helena was building, and she did it all while keeping her role perfectly intact. At home, she set the table, folded laundry, smiled gently, asked about his day, and Renato, completely blind, felt safe enough to get sloppy. One evening, he even hugged her from behind and whispered, "You're handling this well. I'm proud of you." Helena froze, not from pain. That emotion had died long ago. She froze from how ridiculous he sounded. Proud of her. For what? For becoming the perfect victim? She almost laughed, but instead, she placed her hand on his arm and whispered, "I just want you to be happy." He had no idea that those words, the same ones that comforted him, were the ones sealing his fate. Because the truth was simple. He wasn't living with the broken, silent woman he thought he had destroyed. He was living with the woman who was documenting every crime he committed, the woman who was building an airtight case, the woman who was preparing for the courtroom like a general preparing for war, and the woman who with each passing day grew more certain of one thing. She wasn't just going to walk away victorious. She was going to walk away untouchable. Renato had no idea that the trap was already closed. He had walked into it himself. And Helena, she was just waiting for the door to slam shut. When the day finally arrived, Helena woke up before sunrise, not because she was anxious, anxiety had left her months ago, but because she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. While Renato snored beside her, dreaming of the new life he believed he'd secured, Helena stood by the window, watching the first light of the morning spread across the city. She whispered to herself, "Today, everything changes." Renato got ready with the arrogance of a man who believed the universe bent in his favor. He straightened his suit, checked his reflection 3 times, and even sprayed extra cologne. "You don't need to look so tense," he said to Helena. "I promised this wouldn't be complicated for you." Helena just smiled. If only he knew. When they arrived at the courthouse, Marcella was already there, dressed like she was attending a fashion event, not a legal proceeding. She waved dramatically, her fake sweetness dripping like syrup. "Helena, you're early. I thought you'd be, well, emotional." Helena didn't answer. Her silence was her crown. Inside the courtroom, the tension was thick, like the air before a thunderstorm. Renato sat confidently beside his lawyer, crossing his legs and whispering flirtatiously to Marcella. He didn't even try to hide it anymore. Mara, sitting on Helena's right, leaned over and whispered, "Remember, you don't need to say much. Just let the truth do the work." The judge entered. Judge Azevedo was not a man easily impressed. He had seen liars, cheaters, con artists, and manipulators of every kind, but something about Renato's smugness already bothered him. The judge opened the divorce document, the one Renato had signed with such certainty. His eyebrows rose. "Mr. Silva," the judge said slowly, "did you read this carefully?" Renato smirked. "It's a simple consensual divorce, Your Honor." The judge cleared his throat. "Well, according to what you signed, you agree to transfer 70% of all marital assets to your wife, plus $7,000 per month in alimony, indefinitely." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcella's fan slipped from her hand. Renato went pale, absolutely colorless. That's impossible,"
he stammered. "That's not what my lawyer prepared." Mara stood, gracefully, calmly, like a queen sharpening her sword. "Your Honor, with your permission, I would like to submit additional evidence." Judge Azevedo nodded, and then the storm hit. Bank transfers, screenshots, phone recordings, receipts from luxury hotels, Marcella's posts flaunt
Money that wasn't hers. Audio files of Renato calling his marriage baggage. Every piece was placed on the table with surgical precision. Marcella whispered, "My God, what have we done?" Renato tried to stand, tried to talk, tried to deny, but every word trapped him deeper. Helena sat still, her hands folded gently in her lap, not triumphant, not vindictive, just finally free. The judge, now visibly disturbed, leaned forward. "Mr. Silva," he said, voice firm, "you attempted marital fraud. You misappropriated funds. You involved your mistress in illegal transactions. And you brought her into this courtroom as if this were a joke." Marcella burst into tears. Renato collapsed into his chair. Helena lifted her chin. For the first time in a long time, the world saw her as she truly was. Not a victim, not a shadow, but a woman who refused to be erased. Judge Azevedo slammed the gavel. "This divorce is no longer consensual. Court orders immediate freezing of all accounts and reversal of all unauthorized transfers." The courtroom erupted in chaos. But Helena? She rose calmly, smoothing her blouse. Her storm was over. But their storm had just begun. The moment the gavel struck, everything Renato thought he controlled slipped straight through his fingers. He reached forward desperately, as if he could physically grab his collapsing life before it hit the ground. "Your Honor, please, this is a misunderstanding." "Sit down, Mr. Silva," Judge Azevedo ordered, voice sharp enough to cut. "You have dug your own grave." Marcella was crying so loudly that even the court clerk looked uncomfortable. Renato's attorney scrambled through papers that were now completely useless, his forehead glistening with panic. But Helena stood still. Her silence was no longer strategy. It was victory. Renato turned to her, eyes wild, pleading, "Helena, please, we can fix this. You don't need to—" But the judge interrupted again. "Mr. Silva, if you speak to your wife again without permission, I will hold you in contempt." Renato froze. He wasn't the powerful businessman anymore. He wasn't the man who controlled everything. He wasn't the husband who belittled his wife behind closed doors. He was just a man caught in his own trap. And Helena watched, not with joy, not with cruelty, but with the calm of someone who finally saw the truth revealed. The truth she had known all along. He had never been strong. He had only been loud. And now even his voice was gone. Mara gathered the last document, placed it neatly into her folder, and whispered to Helena, "It's over. You won." But the real victory came next. When the judge spoke again, he didn't just rule. He punished. "Mr. Silva, you have 48 hours to return every misappropriated cent. You will also face investigation for fraud. This court will not tolerate manipulation or financial abuse." Marcella gasped. "Fraud? He told me everything was legal. Renato, you said—" But Renato snapped, "Shut up, Marcella. Just shut up." It was over for them. You could see it instantly. The fantasy they built on lies and stolen money evaporated right there in front of everyone. When the hearing adjourned, Renato called out again, "Helena, please." She turned back, just once. And that single look carried more power than all his excuses combined. He saw it. Really saw it. For the first time.
Helena wasn't the woman he tried to destroy. She was the woman he should have feared from the beginning. She walked toward the door with Mara by her side. Her heels echoed through the hall like a final sentence. Marcella gripped Renato's arm in panic. "What do we do now?" Renato whispered hollowly. We pay." "No, you pay. I'm not going down for you." And just like that, in one brutal second, she let go of him. Helena didn't hear their breakup. She didn't need to, because her victory wasn't watching them fall apart. Her victory was knowing she didn't have to lift a finger to make it happen. The truth did that for her. Outside the courthouse, the sun felt different. Brighter. Warmer. New. Helena breathed deeply for the first time in a long time. It wasn't the breath of someone escaping. It was the breath of someone stepping into her new life. But destiny hadn't finished surprising her yet. Because justice had been served, something much bigger was waiting for her on the other side of that courtroom door. 6 months. That's how long it took for the world to flip upside down. For Helena, 6 months was enough to rebuild her entire life from the ashes. For Renato, 6 months was enough to lose everything he once flaunted. And for Marcella, 6 months was enough for her luxury lifestyle to turn into a running joke online. But let's start with Helena, because this is her story. She signed the final settlement papers in a modern office building downtown, not as a desperate woman clinging to the past, but as the CEO of her own educational consulting company. Her business was thriving. Corporate clients, a waiting list of universities wanting her workshops, and partnerships forming faster than she could sign them. Her assistant walked in with a bright smile. "Miss Silva, Dr. Valdez is on the phone." Helena picked up. "Helena," Mara said, "the settlement is finalized. You've received 70% of the assets, plus the house, and $180,000 in compensation. And Renato owes you monthly support for the next 5 years." Helena closed her eyes, letting the moment sink in. Not out of satisfaction, out of relief. Because she hadn't fought to destroy him. She had fought to save herself. Now, what about Renato? His company collapsed after investigators uncovered not just the fraud Helena exposed, but more he had been hiding for years. He went from successful entrepreneur to man facing 3 lawsuits at once. Marcella left him the moment she realized luxury wasn't part of the package anymore. He now lived in a modest apartment, working as a commission-based salesman. No more Italian suits, no more designer watches, no more arrogance. Just a man crushed under the weight of his own lies. Marcella didn't fare any better. When her involvement in the financial scheme became public, every job opportunity evaporated. Her social media posts, the ones flaunting the stolen money, went viral as memes titled "Instant Karma Deluxe Edition." Unable to find work, she moved to another city, trying to outrun the reputation she built herself. But Helena's favorite moment came unexpectedly. One afternoon in a corporate building elevator, the doors opened, and there he was, Renato. Smaller, thinner, carrying a cheap briefcase. He froze. "Helena, I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." She didn't smile. She didn't get angry. She didn't gloat. She just looked at him, really looked, and said, "Renato, you didn't break me. You revealed me." He swallowed hard. "You made me discover who I really am. And the truth is, I would have never become this woman if you hadn't tried so hard to silence her." He opened his mouth to speak, but she raised her hand gently. "I don't hate you. I don't want revenge. You did me a favor. You freed me.
The elevator doors opened and she stepped out. Renato watched her leave, the woman he tried to erase, becoming someone he could never reach again. Today, Helena speaks at universities, conferences, and women's events. Her message is simple. Strength doesn't come from what you survive. It comes from what you rebuild afterward. People admire her not because of what she lost, but because of what she had the courage to create. Justice had been served, but her greatest victory? She didn't just survive betrayal, she transformed it into a life her enemies could never match.